Hello everyone. Phoenix61 here with more Skull and Bones. So today we are talking about how to prepare for the next season. We're currently in season 3 going into season 4, but honestly if it's a later season when you're watching this is a lot of this is probably still the same or similar. Because it's kind of been the theme for the last couple of resets as well. So first stop here is going to be the bartender. We're going to talk a little bit about the black market and so on. But really, if you haven't done this already, go and work on capturing all of the factories for mining pieces of 8, and then continue to keep them funded and running and collecting from them however which way you currently do, right? I prefer to have a whole bunch of just dummy fleet ships that I built with all sorts of, I made a whole bunch of snows, right, since they're kind of the cheaper-ish when it comes to material types. And then I just outfitted them with whatever I'm not, whatever items weapons and furniture I'm not using, right? So I'm continuing to just keep going with that. And the reason for that is, so even if you've bought everything you want from the black market and you're just drowning in pieces of 8, right, there's still some value in collecting pieces of 8, at least on a weekly basis, so that you can earn sovereigns, right? So there's some thresholds that when you collect certain amounts each week and throughout the season that you will earn sovereigns. And even if you've bought everything you already want for sovereigns, the reason you would want to try and stock up on them is because you do not lose your sovereigns when the season resets. And so far, each season has presented itself with some new weapons here in the black market that you can only get for sovereigns. So one of these being this white jade here. There's also the 1,000-year monsoons down here, and then there's also a mortar these are the season 3 items that showed up, right? So I was able to buy them almost right away and outfit them to my ship once, the season turnover happened, right? So we don't know what the next season's weapons will be, but so far it's always been new weapons, and you've always had to buy them for sovereigns, right? There's also other things throughout each season that are other weapons and stuff that you can get other ways, but to give yourself a leg up on everybody else, right? If you stock up on some sovereigns, you can buy at least these weapons initially right away at the beginning of the season, right? So it's worth continuing to farm pieces of 8, even if it's just to earn some sovereigns so that you have them for the next season. Next up on my list is going to be spend those pieces of 8, right? So you want to grab whatever ship you have that has the most cargo space here, and this is going to be if you've still got a lot of pieces of 8, right? So with each season reset thus far, you've been able to only carry over into the next season 300,000 pieces of 8, right? So if you have more than 300,000 pieces of 8, you're gonna lose all of those right down to 300,000. So what you want to do is go in here to the black market. First of all, you can scroll through and see whatever cosmetics and other items that you could buy with pieces of 8 if you just want to have them just to have them. But then go through here towards the top. There's all these materials that you can buy for pieces of 8. I highly recommend stocking up on these. So there's the exotic ones, right? These orange, background colored ones. And then you can look with those, at least you can see how many you have in the warehouse. But these other items, you're gonna, you'd have to go and actually look, right? It doesn't list in here how much shellac or crude saltpeter I have, right? But shellac's a good one to get because you need that ultimately for getting, if you wanted to get to a point where you could refine more rubber at the refinery, right? You could craft more, and rubber's kind of a unique, time-consuming material to get, right? But now you can craft it, right? So go in here and, kind of look and see, what items you might be low on, right? Even buy, some wood and stuff like that, right? So if you're still doing things like building out fleet ships, or you just want to be prepped for, next season when, maybe there'll be a new ship that you can craft or whatever, right? Just stock up on stuff. Otherwise, if you don't spend your pieces of 8 down to 300,000, you're leaving something out on the table, right? So But any of these things that you feel like you've ever been low on in the past, right? Like, you can only buy as much as your ship can hold, right? So you're kind of stuck with, some of these, like the wood and the metals, right? It's going to fill up your ship pretty quick, right? So that's a few runs. But some of the higher end items, right? You can get your pieces of 8 spend down pretty quickly. So be careful there, right? Don't buy too many of one thing and then you're out of pieces of 8, right? So, but yeah, so basically the theme has been every season reset, right, is if you don't have 300,000 pieces of 8, or work on getting up to 300,000 pieces of 8, and if you have over 300,000 pieces of 8, spend those pieces of 8 down to about 300,000, because that's the only amount you'll be able to carry over into the next season. So that gives you that 300,000 pieces of 8 head start for next season, albeit for like upgrading factories and whatever else you want to spend it on to get yourself started for the season. Next up on my list is do some refinery-ing, right? So there's quite a bit of stuff in here. What's nice is you can see, in that middle item card, you can see how much I have stored in my warehouse. I've got like almost 6,000 cogwheels, 2,900 sheet glass, right? So I don't really need any of those. Shellac, I just bought some shellac from the black market, right? That's probably a good one to buy from the black market because you need that to craft lacquer, and then you would use lacquer to craft rubber, which is kind of a little bit more of a rare material. Like a lot of ship upgrades and I think even some weapon stuff like require rubber to get through your ship upgrades, right? So that's a good one to have. So I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna craft some rubber, right? So this way I'll have some for next season, and that way if there are any items that I need, any of these higher end items, right, like for an item that shows up next season, I'll already have it and I won't have to sit here and craft these, right? So some of these higher end materials, right, they take an hour a piece to craft. So you could go through here and see if you maybe make sure you have like a couple, like 1 or 2 of each of these items as you carry over into next season, and then that way when whatever pops up, albeit a new ship, a new weapon, or whatever, if you need one of those items to craft that new weapon or ship, whatever it is, you'll already have it and you won't have to wait that hour or go in and collect materials, right? So highly recommend, right? So buy materials from the black market, then go to Refinery, look and see what other items you might need, right? And do some refinery-ing, right? And then so next on my list, this is going to be something fairly new that I haven't suggested in the past, but this part of this is going to look familiar, right? But hang with me here because I've got an end game to this, right? So we all know to go into the distillery or the laboratory in the East Indies, right, and take your raw material Helm stuff and refine them into these higher end Helm products, right? So at the distillery, it's the Gold Skull Gin, Gold Skull Rum, etc., right? And then to get those raw materials such as sugar, berries, whatever have you, right? You'll do a lot of these missions within the supply network, right? I like to do the liaison missions because they're quick and easy, and you can hold 6 missions at a time, right? So you can do 6 of these roving supply missions and then go and do them all at once, right? And then any of these attacks, you could do these also. So Fort Dulise is an easy plunder base to do by yourself. If so do whatever ones you're comfortable with, right? And the end game here is to basically we're going to work towards getting us some Helm leases to carry over into next season, right? So after you pick up the Helm liaison missions, right, for the roving missions, you go out there and you kill the supply ship, right, and that auto completes all of the existing missions that you are currently carrying for a roving supply, right? At least that's how it was working in the current state of the game, right? So I still see a lot of people sailing up to that ship and doing the exchange. This way you hold on to silver, right? You don't have to pay your silver to get those Helm products, and it's a little bit quicker, right? And being marked by the Helm, at least thus far, hasn't really caused any issues. I don't see that much more aggression towards me, right? And then what you're going to do here is, so you go back to the, after you've collected your Helm material, Helm raw materials, go back to your distillery or factory or laboratory, whatever, and craft them into those higher end products. And then normally what you would do is go to either Skurlock or Admiral Rama over in the East Indies, and you would sell those higher end products for silver, right? So you would tab over to sell here, and this is kind of how you would, typically fund your your factories, right? So you need silver to run those factories to earn pieces of 8. But with this season, you don't really need as much silver, right? So, but yeah, you'd go in here. Let's say I want to sell some Gold Skull rum. I'll sell like 1,000, right? So you get 2,000, 1,100, right? So you get 2,700 or 275,000, right? So like that's great and all, but you can also buy Helm leases, right? And these will carry over, right? So it's almost kind of like a little bit of a sneaky way to quote, hold on to some factories from one season to the next. So you can buy these for either the Gold Skull rum. I highly recommend the Red Isle ones, right? Because it's only 7,500 Gold Skull rum, and I know for some people only is going to be, kind of still a lot. But yeah, so you can do this, and I think those either refresh every day or every hour. But I mean, honestly, like, but those are expensive when it comes to those Helm products, right? So I'm typically buying one maybe every time I've signed in if I've been grinding out Helm materials, right? So that I can make those. So yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, right? So, but I'll scroll through here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, yeah, I do have, where are the Helm leases? I'll show you how many I've got thus far, right? So I've got 7 open ones, and then I think I have some for, I don't know why they're not right next to each other. I guess because those are gold rarity versus purple rarity. Yeah, and I have 3 Red Isle ones as well, right? So the other part too about like, collecting, making sure you've done all the takeovers and collected all the factories in general is there are rewards at the end of each season that will grant you some additional Helm leases. At least that's how they've done it in the past, right, with past resets. So you'll get some extra Helm leases going into, the following season if you've collected, a certain number of factories and territories and all that other fun stuff, right? But you can go in and also buy them from Skurlock or Admiral Rama for their, corresponding Helm products, and then those will carry over into the next season as well. So here we are back, and now we're in the laboratory, right? So I'm just going to maximum effort here and craft as much as I can for the next level up, and then we'll go back out into Talak Pinjara and check and see what Admiral Rama has, right? So same thing. This is also another good way to get upgrade parts as well. If you're kind of like newer-ish to the game, right, you can use this, this process of mining, farming these Helm materials and then going and selling them to Admiral Rama or Skurlock for upgrade parts. It can be a little bit grindy if that's kind of your only way of getting them, but as you finish off each season, right, so there's like, it was like 2,000 of something, right, to get one upgrade part. And then, yeah, so for Rama, you would typically either sell her the Black Lotus Opium or the Silver Snuff to get 250 silver a piece for those. But as you can see in here, you can also buy East Indies Helm leases or a global, open world Helm lease as well. Just depends on the product type, right? So I actually do have 10,000 of either the Black Lotus Opium or Blue Lotus Opium, whatever. So I'm going to buy one so that it only lets you get one at a time, right? So that's what I was saying. So now it says out of stock, but that'll either refresh next day or next hour or whatever it is, right? But I haven't had so much that I can buy one every hour, right? Like that's just not quite doable, right? But yeah, you could get upgrade parts from her as well. One more thing on the list here too, as well, is I do these buyouts whenever they show up. So I select it and then I don't do the automatic fast travel, right? I wait and see if the buyout is for something that I have already, right? So I don't go out and just seek out the materials if I don't already have them. So I joined this one and it happened to be for silver. So then in that case, then I did go and fast travel. The reason you want to do these is because you still get, even if you have all the locations unlocked, right, you still get a raider cache, which has a chance to drop another Helm lease, right? So this is a way to get one for free. It's kind of rare that you do get a Helm lease when you open one of these raider caches, but you still get good stuff. It's either Helm materials, Helm products, or some pieces of 8, right? Like, so it's still worth doing, even if you don't get that Helm lease, which is kind of what I want, typically, because that would be the best thing. But when I don't get a Helm lease, yeah, you can see in there that there's the possible loot, right? So, but we still got 450 pieces of 8, some poppy, and some repair kits, and some silver, right? So, like, that's still worth it, right? So, but you can do the same thing for, you know, going out and doing hostile takeovers and the legendary heist and stuff like that, even if you have those locations unlocked, because you could get a raider cache. You will get a raider cache if you already have the location unlocked, right? The reason I patronize the buyouts is because it's so quick and easy if I have those materials. But thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, make sure you are following the channel. More Skull and Bones videos in the future. See you next time.